6 weeks later, the largest fleet in galactic history gathered at the convergence point, a region of space where multiple hyperspace routes met. Ships from dozens of different worlds floated in perfect formation, their weapons powered and their crews ready for the fight of their lives. At the center of the massive fleet, the human flagship Indomitable pulsed with quantum biological energy. Captain So-Young stood on the bridge watching her screens as final preparations were completed. Around her, the ship's living systems hummed with activity, preparing for what would either be the greatest victory or the final battle in galactic history. "Status report," Captain So-Young called out. Commander Dongmin, the tactical officer, checked his displays. "All Guardian installations are online and ready. Power levels are optimal. Network connections are stable across all participating worlds." Engineer Ji-hoon looked up from his station. "Quantum disruptors are charged and synchronized. The energy grid is drawing power from over 4,000 inhabited systems. We have never had this much energy to work with." Through the main screen, Captain So-Young could see the incredible diversity of the Allied fleet. Sleek Nekotai cruisers flew alongside blocky Hive-Tar carriers. Crystal Shardani vessels sparkled next to the organic curves of human ships. Every major species had contributed their best vessels to this desperate defense. "Incoming. Transmission from Admiral Subin," the communications officer announced. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. She was broadcasting from the command ship, coordinating the entire Alliance fleet. Behind her, the bridge buzzed with activity as beings from many different species worked side by side. "All ships, this is Admiral Subin. Long-range sensors confirm Devourer ships are approaching the outer marker. Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. Remember, our goal is not to destroy them ship by ship. We need to disrupt their hive-mind connection. Stay in formation and trust the network." Captain So-Young opened a channel to her crew. "You have all heard the briefings. Today we fight not just for our own species, but for every thinking being in the galaxy. The humans have given us the tools, but victory depends on all of us working together." At his engineering station, Ji-hoon watched the power readings climb as more worlds connected to the Guardian network. The numbers were incredible. Energy flowing from thousands of different systems, all focused on a single purpose. "Captain, we are receiving power contributions from species I have never heard of," he reported. "Even remote colonies that we thought had no space capability are feeding energy into the network." Commander Dongmin studied his tactical displays. "The network is having an unexpected effect. Our ships are moving in perfect coordination without conscious effort. It is like the entire fleet is becoming a single organism." That was exactly what Science Advisor Hanul had hoped for. Deep in the Indomitable's quantum biological core, her consciousness merged with the ship's AI and reached out to touch the minds of beings throughout the galaxy. For the first time in history, the diverse species of the galaxy truly thought as one. The Devourers arrived like a nightmare made real. 3,000 massive ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing light and hope in equal measure. Each vessel was kilometers long, grown from the life force of conquered worlds. Together they represented the compressed psychic energy of billions of dead beings. "Contact," reported the sensor operator. "Devourer fleet confirmed. They are advancing in battle formation." Captain So-Young felt the network strengthen around her. Through the quantum connection, she could sense the determination of every captain in the Allied fleet. Fear was present, but it was overwhelmed by shared resolve. "All ships, prepare for engagement. Remember, trust the network. Let it guide your actions." The Devourers opened fire first, sending waves of dark energy toward the Allied fleet. The attacks were not just physical. They carried psychic pressure designed to break the will of their enemies. In previous conflicts, this opening strike had caused many fleets to scatter in panic. This time was different. The network absorbed the psychic attack and transformed it into strength. Instead of fleeing, the Allied ships moved closer together, their formation becoming tighter and more coordinated. Human ships led the charge, their quantum biological hulls glowing brighter as they absorbed enemy fire. Return shots from the Allied fleet struck Devourer vessels with unprecedented accuracy. Where conventional weapons had little effect, the new quantum-enhanced weapons burned through dark hulls like sunlight through shadow. But the Devourers had evolved too. Their ships began adapting to the attacks, growing new defensive structures in real time. What worked in the first minutes of battle became less effective as the enemy learned. Commander Dongmin realized the problem first. "Captain, they are adapting to our weapons faster than expected. Conventional tactics will not be enough." Through the network, Captain So-young felt the same realization spreading through the Allied fleet. The Devourer's hive mind allowed them to share adaptations instantly across their entire force. Any strategy used against one ship was immediately known by all the others. That was when Engineer Ji-hoon made the breakthrough. "Captain, what if we use their strength against them? The network allows us to change tactics instantly too, but we have something they do not: diversity. Instead of fighting like a hive mind, the Allied fleet began fighting like what it truly was: dozens of different species with unique ways of thinking. Nekotai ships used stealth tactics that the Devourers had never encountered. Hivetar vessels coordinated in swarm patterns that confused the enemy's predictions. Crystal Shardani ships reflected and amplified energy in ways that overloaded Devourer defenses. Most importantly, human ships began networking their consciousness technology with every other species in the fleet. For the first time, beings who had evolved on different worlds under different stars truly understood each other's thoughts and methods. The effect on the Devourers was devastating. Their hive mind had never faced an enemy that could think in so many different ways simultaneously. Every time they adapted to one tactic, the Allies switched to something completely different. But the real battle was not between ships, it was between minds. At the climax of the engagement, the Devourer Queen Mind reached out through space to dominate the Allied network, just as it had done to so many species before. What it encountered was something unprecedented in its long existence. Instead of a single mind to crush or a chaotic collection of thoughts to scatter, it faced the combined will of trillions of beings who refused to give up. Human stubbornness merged with Nekotai cunning, Hivetar loyalty, and Shardani wisdom. The diversity that the Devourers saw as weakness became an unbreakable strength. The psychic backlash was enormous. For the first time in its existence, the Queen Mind felt pain, confusion, and something it had never experienced before: defeat. The shockwave rippled through the entire Devourer fleet, severing the hive mind connections that held their forces together. Without the Queen Mind to guide them, individual Devourer ships became confused and lost. Some tried to continue fighting, but their coordination was broken. Others simply stopped moving, their crews unable to function without the hive mind to tell them what to think. Engineer Ji-hoon's Guardian network weapons struck at that moment of confusion. Quantum disruptors fired simultaneously from thousands of hidden installations throughout the galaxy. Their combined energy focused on the weakened Devourer fleet. Dark ships that had seemed invincible moments before began to break apart as their stolen life force was finally released. The battle was over in minutes. Where 3,000 nightmare vessels had threatened all galactic life, only empty space remained. The life force they had stolen over centuries returned to the quantum fields, free at last to join the natural cycle of the universe. Captain So-young stood on her bridge, hardly believing what had happened. Through the network, she felt the joy and relief of beings throughout the galaxy. They had not just won a battle, they had proven that cooperation could overcome any threat. "All ships, this is Admiral Subin. The Devourer fleet has been eliminated. The Guardian network shows no remaining enemy contacts. The galaxy is safe." Cheers erupted on ships throughout the Allied fleet. But the real celebration was happening on worlds across the galaxy, where billions of beings who had contributed their energy to the network felt the moment of victory as if they had been there themselves. 6 months later, the Galactic Council met in a new chamber built specifically to accommodate humanity as a full member. The old circular arrangement had been replaced with a more complex design that allowed for better cooperation between different species. Admiral Subin, now serving as human ambassador, worked with former skeptics who had become close friends. The integration was not always smooth. Human technology and methods often clashed with established traditions, but the shared experience of the Devourer War had created bonds stronger than politics. Elder historian Velthara finished updating the galactic archives with the official record of the war. Her final entry read, "On this date, the species known as humanity revealed themselves to be real, not mythical. Their advanced technology and cooperative spirit led an alliance that defeated the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. The great council chamber of Vex Prime had never been so quiet. Representatives from 12 different species sat in perfect silence as Admiral Taejun stood before the central podium. Intelligence Officer Yoonji and Science Advisor Hanul flanked him, their expressions grave. Council Leader Thrakmor gestured for the Admiral to begin. "The floor is yours, Admiral. You mentioned urgent importance to all galactic life." Admiral Taejun activated a small device and the chamber's lights dimmed. A three-dimensional projection filled the space above their heads, showing the galaxy from a distant perspective. At the very edge, dark shapes moved between the stars. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected these, the Admiral said. His voice carried easily through the chamber despite speaking quietly. Gravitational distortions that we have not seen for 500 years. The projection zoomed in on the dark shapes. They were massive, each one larger than any space station ever built. Their surfaces absorbed light, making them appear as holes in space itself. As the council members watched, more shapes emerged from the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. "The Devourers have returned," Admiral Taejun announced. Commander Yuki was the first to speak. "Admiral, our records mention this species only in historical archives. Most scholars believe they were myths like..." She paused, realizing what she was about to say. "Like humans." Admiral Taejun finished with a sad smile. "Yes, Commander. Both species became legends after the Great War. The difference is that we chose to hide. They were forced to retreat." Science Advisor Hanul stepped forward and manipulated the projection. The dark ships grew larger, revealing details that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Devourer vessels are not built like our ships," she explained. "They are grown from the life force of conquered species. Each ship contains the compressed psychic energy of billions of beings. They are both vessel and weapon, transport and torture chamber." Captain Brex's forearms trembled as he studied the projection. "How many ships are we looking at?" "Current count is over 3,000, Intelligence Officer Yoonji replied. "Each one capable of draining the life from an entire planet. They move in perfect coordination because they share a single hive-mind consciousness." Elder historian Velthara spoke from her front row seat. "The old archives mention this war. Humanity fought alongside the Galactic Confederation. What happened?" Admiral Taejun's expression grew darker. "We lost. Badly. The Devourers consumed 47 star systems before we managed to force them back. Entire species went extinct. Whole civilizations were reduced to empty worlds drifting in space." The projection changed to show the aftermath of a Devourer attack. A beautiful blue-green world hung in space, but it was completely gray and lifeless. No cities, no forests, no oceans. Just a dead rock where millions had once lived. "This is what happens when they feed," Science Advisor Hanul said softly. "They do not simply kill. They consume the life force itself, leaving nothing behind that could ever live again." Council Leader Thrakmor leaned forward. "You said you forced them back. How?" "With great cost," Admiral Taejun replied. "Humanity developed weapons specifically designed to disrupt their hive-mind connection. We called them quantum disruptors. But using them required enormous energy, and the psychic feedback killed many of our own people." Intelligence Officer Yoonji activated another display. By the end of the war, both sides were exhausted. The Devourers retreated to the void between galaxies to rebuild their forces. Humanity withdrew from galactic affairs to prepare for their inevitable return. "And now they are back," Captain Brex said quietly. "What has changed?" "Why now?" "They have evolved," Science Advisor Hanul answered. "Our long-range sensors show new ship designs, improved defensive systems. They learned from their defeat and spent 5 centuries becoming stronger." The projection showed current Devourer ships alongside historical versions. The new vessels were larger, more complex, with organic growths that pulsed with dark energy. "But so have we," Admiral Taejun said with quiet confidence. "Humanity has spent 500 years preparing for this moment. We have new weapons, better ships, and most importantly, a plan." Commander Yuki raised her hand. "What kind of plan?" Admiral Taejun manipulated the projection to show a network of installations throughout the galaxy. They appeared as small lights connected by energy streams, forming a web that covered inhabited space. "The Guardian Protocol," he explained, "hidden facilities placed in strategic locations throughout the galaxy. each one equipped with advanced quantum disruptors designed to overwhelm devourer hive mind connections. Hidden where? Asked Council Leader Thrackmore. Inside asteroids on dead moons in the deep spaces between systems, Intelligence Officer Yunji replied. We have been building this network for centuries, always ready but never revealing our presence. Science Advisor Hanul pointed to the energy streams connecting the installations. The Guardian Protocol requires enormous power to function, more than humanity can provide alone. It must draw energy from inhabited worlds throughout the galaxy. The implications hit the Council members like a physical blow. Captain Brex was the first to understand. You need our cooperation. Without it, your weapon will not work. Exactly, Admiral Taejun confirmed. Every inhabited world must contribute power to the network. Every species must work together. The Devourers are counting on our differences to divide us just like last time. Commander Yuki studied the projection carefully. How much time do we have? Based on their current speed, approximately 6 weeks before they reach the outer systems. Intelligence Officer Yunji replied. Once they begin feeding, their advance will accelerate rapidly. Elder Historian Velthara spoke thoughtfully. You are asking every species to trust you completely, to give you access to our power grids, our defensive systems. Some will refuse. Then they will be consumed first, Admiral Taejun said bluntly. The Devourers do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They feed until nothing remains, then move on to the next system. Council Leader Thrackmore looked around at his fellow representatives. The weight of the decision was enormous. Trust the legendary humans who had hidden for centuries, or face the Devourers with conventional weapons that had failed before. Admiral, you mentioned new weapons and better ships. What makes you confident this time will be different? Science Advisor Hanul smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Because we have learned something the Devourers have not. True strength comes not from consuming others, but from working together. She modified the projection to show human ships alongside vessels from many different species. Instead of the dark energy that connected Devourer ships, bright streams of cooperative power linked the Allied fleet. Our quantum biological technology allows us to network consciousness with other species, she explained. For the first time in galactic history, different forms of intelligence can truly work as one. The hive mind Devourers have never faced anything like it. Admiral Taejun stepped closer to the council podium. We cannot force your cooperation, but without it, this galaxy will become a graveyard. The choice is yours. The chamber fell silent again as council members considered their options. Outside the crystal dome, human ships waited in the darkness, ready to implement the Guardian Protocol if the galaxy chose to trust them. Time was running out, and the Devourers were getting closer. 3 weeks had passed since the council meeting when Hana's quiet mining station became the center of the galaxy's attention. She was working her usual shift in the communications room when the first warning came through. All stations, this is Captain Minho. Void Raider ships detected on the edge of our system. This is not a drill. Battle stations, everyone. Hana's crystal fingers flew over her control panel as she tried to get a clear reading on the approaching ships. The Void Raiders were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless pirates who took everything and left nothing but empty hulls floating in space. Captain, I count 15 ships, she reported over the comm. 3 heavy cruisers and 12 smaller attack vessels. They will be here in 20 minutes. Captain Minho's voice stayed calm even though everyone knew their small station could not fight that many enemies. All workers to emergency shelters. Defense teams to your positions. We will hold them off as long as we can. The mining station had only basic shields and 6 old defense turrets. Against 15 Void Raider ships, they might last 10 minutes if they were lucky. Hana stayed at her post, trying to send distress signals to anyone who might help. The Void Raiders came fast and angry. Their black ships looked like metal sharks cutting through space. They opened fire as soon as they got close enough, sending bright energy bolts toward the station. Captain Minho and his small crew fought back bravely. The defense turrets fired as fast as they could, but the enemy ships were too quick and too many. One by one, the station's weapons went offline. The shields flickered and began to fail. This is it, Captain Minho said quietly over the comm. Everyone stay calm. We have done our best. That was when space around them began to shimmer like water. Hana watched her sensors in amazement as 12 massive energy signatures appeared from nowhere. The space that had been empty a moment before suddenly filled with the largest ships she had ever seen. These vessels were nothing like the blocky, angular designs used by most galactic species. They were smooth and curved, almost organic-looking. Their hulls seemed to pulse with a soft inner light as if they were alive. Each ship was easily 3 times larger than the biggest Void Raider cruiser. The lead ship opened communications on all frequencies. The voice that came through was clear and strong, speaking perfect galactic standard. "This is Admiral Subin of the Human Defense Fleet. Unknown vessels. You will cease hostilities immediately and withdraw from this system." The words hit the mining station crew like a physical blow. Humans. The legendary species from the old stories was real, and they were here. The Void Raider response was typically arrogant. "Unknown species, this system is under Void Raider control. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Instead of words, the lead Void Raider cruiser fired its main weapons directly at the human flagship. The massive energy blast that could have destroyed a space station struck the human ship's shields and simply disappeared. The shields did not even flicker. What happened next made Hana gasp out loud. The human ship's return fire was a single, focused beam of white energy. It touched the Void Raider cruiser for less than a second, and the entire ship just vanished. Not exploded, not torn apart. It was there one moment and gone the next, leaving only empty space. The remaining Void Raider ships suddenly seemed very small and very alone. 2 more cruisers tried to run, but the human ships moved faster than anything Hana had ever seen. Another pair of white beams reached out and 2 more Void Raider ships ceased to exist. The rest of the pirate fleet scattered in panic, jumping to hyperspace as fast as their engines could carry them. In less than 5 minutes, what had been a deadly attack force was reduced to empty space and confused radio chatter. Admiral Subin's voice came through the comm again, but this time it was gentle and concerned. "Mining Station Kepler 7, this is the Human Defense Fleet. Are you in need of assistance? We detected weapons fire and distress signals." Captain Minho stared at his communication panel for several long seconds before finding his voice. "Admiral Subin. This is Captain Minho, Station Commander. Yes, we could use help. Our shields are damaged and we have injured crew members. Permission to dock? We have medical teams standing by." "Permission granted," Minho replied, though his voice shook slightly. "Admiral, forgive me for asking, but are you really human? The humans from the old legends?" There was what sounded like a quiet laugh from the other end. "We are very real, Captain, and we apologize for taking so long to introduce ourselves properly." Hana watched through the observation deck as the massive human ship approached their tiny station. Up close, it was even more impressive. The hull definitely looked alive somehow, with patterns that shifted like slow breathing. Soft lights moved along its surface in waves like blood through veins. A smaller ship detached from the flagship and moved toward their docking bay. It was sleek and graceful, making no sound at all as it settled into place with perfect precision. The airlock opened, and 3 figures stepped through. Hana held her breath as she got her first look at the legendary humans. They looked exactly like the old stories described, bipedal with 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin was a warm brown color, and they had hair on their heads. Most striking were their eyes, bright and intelligent with an intensity that seemed to see everything at once. The leader was a woman wearing a simple blue uniform. She moved with quiet confidence as she approached Captain Minho. "I am Admiral Subin. These are Dr. Jin Woo, our medical officer, and Commander Dae Hyun, tactical specialist." Dr. Jin Woo immediately began scanning the injured crew members with devices that looked nothing like standard galactic medical equipment. His tools hummed softly and projected holographic displays that showed detailed biological information. "Your people will be fine," he said in a reassuring voice. "Some radiation exposure and a few broken bones. Nothing we cannot fix." Commander Dae Hyun was examining the damage to the station's systems. "Your defense grid is old but well maintained. The shield generators just need new power cores. We can provide temporary replacements." Captain Minho looked around at his crew, all of whom were staring at the humans in wonder. "Admiral, I have to ask. The Galactic Council believes humans are myths. Where have you been all this time?" Admiral Subin's expression grew serious. "We have been watching, Captain. Waiting and preparing. The galaxy faces a greater threat than Void Raiders, and we wanted to be ready when the time came." "What kind of threat?" Hana asked, forgetting her place as a simple communications worker. The Admiral looked at her with those intense eyes. the kind that requires all of us to work together if we hope to survive. As the human medical and repair teams worked to help the station, Hana sent out messages to every contact she had. The news spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. The humans were real. Their ships were more advanced than anything anyone had imagined, and they had just saved a small mining station from certain destruction. But the most important part of her message was Admiral Subin's warning about a greater threat. If the humans were coming out of hiding after centuries, something very bad was heading their way. News of the human arrival spread through galactic communication networks faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours, every major world knew that the legendary species was real and had technology that made Void Raider ships disappear with single shots. Admiral Subin stood in the mining station's small conference room, looking out at the stars through the observation window. Dr. Jin Woo and Commander Dae Hyun sat at the metal table with Captain Minho and his senior staff. The humans looked relaxed, but there was something in their eyes that suggested they carried heavy knowledge. "You want to know where we have been?" Admiral Subin said without turning around. "The answer is simple. We never left. We have been here all along, watching from places you never thought to look." Engineer Kyung-ho, one of the human technical specialists, activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of tiny lights appeared in the empty spaces between star systems. Hidden bases, monitoring stations, and research facilities, he explained. "We have been living in the dark spaces, the asteroid fields, and the dead systems that nobody wants. Always watching, always learning." Captain Minho leaned forward in his chair. "But why hide? The Galactic Council would have welcomed you. Your technology could have helped everyone." Dr. Jinwoo looked sad as he answered, "Because we made a terrible mistake once. 500 years ago, we were part of galactic civilization. We shared our technology and fought alongside other species. But we also brought something with us that nearly destroyed everything." The human doctor activated another projection. This one showed a battle in space, but not like any battle the station crew had ever seen. The enemy ships were massive and dark, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved in perfect coordination like parts of a single mind. "The Devourers," Admiral Subin said quietly, "a hive mind species that feeds on the life force of intelligent beings. They followed us here from another galaxy, and we led them straight to billions of innocent people." Commander Dae Hyun picked up the story. "The war lasted 50 years. Entire star systems were drained of life. Whole species went extinct. By the end, both sides were nearly destroyed. The Devourers retreated to dark space, and humanity withdrew from galactic affairs. We swore we would never again bring danger to other species," Admiral Subin continued. "So we hid. We watched. We prepared. And we advanced our technology far beyond what it was during the war." Engineer Kyung-ho gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the interior of a human ship. The walls seemed to pulse with life, and strange organic patterns covered every surface. "Our ships are not just machines," he explained. "They are living entities created through a fusion of advanced artificial intelligence, biological systems, and quantum mechanics. They can think, adapt, and grow stronger through experience." Hana, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. "The energy signatures I detected." "That was your ships?" "Very good," Dr. Jinwoo smiled. "You have excellent equipment for such a remote station." "Yes, our ships exist partially outside normal spacetime. That is why they appear to pulse with life. They are connected to quantum fields that allow them to respond faster than any purely mechanical system." Captain Minho shook his head in amazement. "Your technology sounds impossible. How did you advance so far in just 500 years? "Because we had to." Admiral Subin turned back to face them. "We knew the Devourers would return eventually. Everything we built, every innovation we created was designed for one purpose: to be ready for them when they came back." The conference room fell silent. Finally, Captain Minho asked the question everyone was thinking: "Are they coming back?" Commander Dae Hyun nodded grimly. "Our long-range sensors detected the first signs 3 months ago. Gravitational distortions at the galaxy's edge. Energy patterns that match Devourer technology. They have been rebuilding in the void between galaxies, and now they are ready to finish what they started." Meanwhile, on Vex Prime, the Galactic Council was in emergency session. Council leader Thrakmore had called representatives from all member worlds to hear the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Commander Yuki stood before the assembled council, reading from her datapad. Confirmed sightings in 17 systems. The humans have ships unlike anything in our databases. Energy output levels that exceed our best dreadnoughts by factors of 10 or more. Are they hostile? Asked Captain Brex, his forearms gesturing nervously. No sign of aggression toward any galactic species, Yuki replied. They have only engaged Void Raider forces, and they offered medical aid to the mining station crew. Elder historian Velthara spoke from her seat in the front row. The timing cannot be coincidental. If humans have been hiding for centuries, why reveal themselves now? The answer came from an unexpected source. A new voice filled the council chamber as every communication system activated at once. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council. This is Admiral Tae-jun of the Human Defense Fleet. We request permission to address your assembly on a matter of urgent importance to all galactic life. Council Leader. Thrakmor looked around at his fellow council members. After a brief whispered discussion, he activated his microphone. Admiral Tae-jun, you have permission to speak. Where are you transmitting from? We are currently 3 light minutes from Vex Prime. May we approach your world? Every council member turned to look out the great crystal dome. Space around their planet appeared empty, but they all knew that human stealth technology could hide entire fleets. Permission granted, Thrakmor said carefully. But we request a small delegation only. Understood. We will send a single ship with a diplomatic team. 30 minutes later, a human vessel appeared in Vex Prime's orbit. It was smaller than the battleships reported elsewhere, but still impressive. The ship's living hull pulsed with soft light as it settled into a parking orbit. A shuttle detached and descended toward the council building's landing pad. As it touched down, beings throughout the galaxy watched on live feeds as the shuttle door opened. Admiral Tae-jun emerged first, followed by Intelligence Officer Yoon-ji and Science Advisor Hanul. They walked with quiet confidence toward the building entrance, where Council Leader Thrakmor waited to greet them. Welcome to Vex Prime, Thrakmor said formally. We are honored to meet representatives of humanity. The honor is ours, Admiral Tae-jun replied. We apologize for our long absence from galactic affairs, but circumstances have forced us to return. As they walked toward the council chamber, Intelligence Officer Yoon-ji spoke quietly to her companions. Long-range scanners confirm it. The gravitational distortions are getting stronger. We have weeks at most before they arrive. Science Advisor Hanul nodded grimly. Then we had better hope the council is ready to hear what we have to tell them. Inside the chamber, hundreds of beings from dozens of species waited to learn why the legendary humans had finally returned. What they were about to hear would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The great crystal dome of Vex Prime sparkled under 3 different suns as beings from across the galaxy gathered for another council meeting. Commander Yuki smoothed her silver fur and checked her notes one last time. The feline Nekotai officer had traveled far from her home world to bring troubling news to the Galactic Council. Inside the massive chamber, 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle. Each chair was built for a different body type. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some needed water tanks, others required special breathing masks. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing: worry about the growing threat at the galaxy's edge. Council Leader Thrakmor stood up slowly. His reptilian scales caught the light as he moved his massive frame. At nearly 3 meters tall, he towered over most other council members. His deep voice echoed through the chamber as he called the meeting to order. We gathered today to discuss the Void Raider attacks, Thrakmor announced. These pirates grow bolder each cycle. They strike our mining stations, capture our cargo ships, and disappear into dark space. What news do our scouts bring? Commander Yuki rose from her seat. Her cat-like ears twitched nervously as she activated her datapad. The attacks are getting worse, Council Leader. Last week alone, they hit 5 different systems, but there is something strange in their communications. She pressed a button and alien voices filled the chamber. The recorded messages were harsh and full of threats, typical Void Raider talk. But then came something different, a phrase that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Did they just mention human reinforcements? Asked Captain Brex, his forearms gesturing wildly. The insect-like Hivetar was known for his sharp hearing. Nervous laughter rippled through the chamber. Several council members exchanged knowing looks. It was always the same with desperate colonies under attack. They invented impossible saviors to keep hope alive. Elder historian Velthara cleared her throat. The ancient being was one of the few who remembered the old stories passed down through generations. Her translucent skin seemed to glow as she spoke. Humans are mentioned in the oldest archives, she said in her whispery voice. According to legend, they were a bipedal species with incredible fighting spirit. The stories say they could survive in almost any environment and never gave up, no matter how bad things got. Legends and fairy tales, scoffed Captain Brex. We have surveyed 90% of this galaxy. If such a species existed, we would have found them by now. Velthara nodded slowly. Perhaps. But the stories are very detailed. They describe human technology as both advanced and somehow alive. Their ships supposedly could think and adapt like living creatures. Most interesting of all, the legends say humans could work together with any species no matter how different. Commander Yuki checked her data again. The energy signatures we detected near the last attack site were unusual. Our computers could not identify the power source. It pulsed with an organic rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Council Leader Thrakmore raised his hand for silence. We cannot waste time chasing myths while real threats destroy our worlds. Commander Yuki, increase patrols in the outer systems. Captain Brex, coordinate with your hive fleets for better coverage. We will defend ourselves with the forces we have, not imaginary ones. The meeting continued for another hour, but Yuki's mind wandered. The energy readings bothered her more than she had let on. In her 20 years of military service, she had seen technology from dozens of different species. This was something entirely new. Far from the crystal halls of Vex Prime, a small mining station orbited a dead planet in the outer rim. Worker Hana wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished her shift in the deep mines. The Shardani people were made of living crystal, but even they got tired after 16 hours of hard labor. Hana worked the communications array during her off hours. She enjoyed listening to the radio chatter from passing ships and distant stations. It helped her feel less alone on this remote rock at the edge of known space. Tonight was different. Her equipment picked up something that made her crystal body hum with excitement. An energy signature unlike anything in the databases was moving through their system. It was powerful but somehow gentle, like a sleeping giant trying not to wake anyone. She called her supervisor Captain Minho, but he was busy dealing with supply problems. The station's shields were acting up again, and their defense turrets needed new power cells. Like most Outer Rim stations, they were always short on everything important. Probably just a glitch in your sensors, Minho said tiredly. The solar storms have been interfering with everything this week. But Hana knew her equipment better than anyone. This was no glitch. Something big was out there, moving through space with technology that made their best ships look like children's toys. She recorded everything and sent copies to 3 different databanks. If something happened to the station, at least someone would know they had detected this mystery signal. As her shift ended, Hana looked out through the observation deck's thick windows. Space looked empty and peaceful, filled with distant stars and the usual cosmic dust. But somewhere out there, hidden from their sensors, something waited. The old stories Velthara had mentioned were not completely forgotten, even in the Outer Rim. Hana's grandmother used to tell tales of the star wanderers who could appear from nowhere to help those in need. The humans of legend who never abandoned anyone and never gave up fighting. Just old stories, Hana whispered to herself, but she kept watching the stars anyway. Back on Vex Prime, the council meeting had ended, but Velthara remained in the chamber. She activated her personal archive and began reviewing files that had not been opened in centuries. The human legends were scattered across dozens of different cultures, but they all shared common details: advanced ships that seemed alive, warriors who never retreated, technology that could adapt to any situation, and always the same promise: when the galaxy's darkest hour came, the humans would return. The old historian smiled to herself. Perhaps it was time to dust off those ancient files after all. Strange energy signatures and desperate radio calls about human reinforcements might be more than just coincidence. In the depths of space, something stirred. Sensors that had watched and waited for centuries detected the growing chaos at the galaxy's edge. Ancient protocols activated, and long silent communications arrays began broadcasting on frequencies that had been dead for 500 years. The myths were about to become reality, But first, the galaxy would have to survive what was coming next.